Hey, can we have what could be a hard conversation? I do make up a story that it'll be worthwhile and get us to a better place. Today, that's where we're going. Don't worry, this isn't an intervention between you and me. We are going to talk about hard, vulnerable, and worthwhile conversations and how to lead in those conversations. Let's go. Are you wearing your like vulnerability cloak? You're like, I
Yeah,
can do
exactly.
this. Okay. Um, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm good. Got a new shirt on, a special shirt for this conversation. I know throughout the show we've been keeping these first it was the shaving, then it was the shirts. I'm excited for what our next little joke or small little joke is, but for now, I'm reflecting on the fact that I've got a new shirt on that
Yeah.
for this episode.
I gave David the memo in episode 5 that this is a video podcast, and ever since we've been flexing our wardrobe here to try to make it a little bit different for you. Looking for a sponsor, Mizzen and Main. That's my favorite.
Hmm.
That's my favorite men's clothing brand. So today we're talking about how to have hard and what we hope to be worthwhile conversations. And I know as we were preparing for this episode, it actually it made us think of a few, both like separately and together, and ones that we were also indirectly involved in. So, can you enlighten us and share? Because there was one in particular that came to mind, and I'd love for you to sort of walk us through that, and then we'll use your case, your experience to unpack what we call the anatomy of a hard and hopefully worthwhile conversation, which is the tool we're going to share with you today, listener.
Yeah. So, well, it involves us,
Yes.
and I called you
Out of the blue.
out of the blue, out
Yeah.
of the light blue and dark blue shirts that I'm wearing, but out of the blue. And I was thinking of you, and I wanted to talk to you about how I was feeling in a situation that I was going through. And then we had a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember coming away from it with I felt more confident, lighter about the situation. But I thought a couple things or one thing that definitely stood out to me was like, I was like, hey, I want to like speak up, or I want to say something. And you were like, okay, you can say whatever you want. I'm not going to hold you back. But I think one of the things that stood out to me, you said like, do you think it's worth it to say something? And then I kind of like reflected on that a little bit more. And then I decided to, you know, initiate or spark this hard conversation that I thought was worth it. And yeah, so I really appreciated our conversation about this, and it helped me feel more and more prepared for this hard conversation.
I think
And
like confident too, like you felt more grounded, more prepared. Yeah.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
I have our text exchange up. Can I narrate it? It's pretty awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Because I got a random phone call from you and I couldn't pick it up. Um, Hi Shed, I was calling to see if we could talk about a situation. No rush. And I'm like, yeah, BS, no rush. Thanks, and I hope you're doing well. And I responded 44 minutes later. That those must have been a very suspenseful 44 minutes. Hey, of course, I just landed back in Toronto, was in Chicago for work. Can we chat tomorrow, midday or afternoon? Nice, thank you. I'm hosting an event all day tomorrow. I will try you on Friday. Thanks again. And then I go, cool. Are you okay? And you went, yeah, for the most part, struggling to speak up. Smiley face. Uh, emoji. I got you. So, and then yeah. So the question, does it feel worth it? So as you know, that comes from my book and Speak Up Culture, which is the two questions that we should, I would say, consciously ask ourselves before making the choice to speak up is, does it feel psychologically safe and does it feel worth it? And sometimes worth it is more important than psychologically safe. If there's courage and like if there's integrity, ethics, courage involved. Like sometimes it doesn't really feel safe, but it feels worth it because the stakes of the situation. Hopefully it does feel both safe or safe enough and worth it. Um, and it seems like it did for this situation, and it sorted out well. Um, in fact, I'm now looking at our follow ups here. Thanks again for our chat yesterday. I appreciate how serious you took it and how thoughtful you were about it. Tear. Um, felt like the right convo at the right time. Thank you. And then there is a picture of your favorite coconut water. And then this was 3 weeks later, two and a half weeks later. Update. Oh no. Anyway, you followed up and lots of good win-win types of chats leading up to this. Feeling good. Thank you for being there for me. And I think what's fun. So you said and you were working more intentionally on just like randomly reaching out and phone and like calling people, and you vulnerably reaching out to me actually made our relationship a lot closer, and we found more excuses to work together on stuff. So it's a cool sort of confluence of events thingy. And I'm flattered and honored and love that you reached out and has led us to this place. Look at us.
Woo!
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
We kind of like meta walked through how the stages and steps.
Yes.
The follow
Yes.
through, so let's walk through in you have a framework,
Yes.
the anatomy of difficult conversation. Let's talk about that.
As we do, we can reflect on this conversation as well as some others that each of us have done separately and together. So, as a father to two young kids, I have a now 9-year-old and 6-year-old. By the time this episode is out, I believe they will be 10 and 7. So, happy birthday, Soph and Jack. But one of the things that so the term weekend has changed in its definition forever when you become a parent of young children, because now Monday morning feels like my weekend because I finally have some time for me, and weekends consist of shuttling children around to different places. And I distinctively remember taking my daughter to gymnastics, and it was like either an hour or a 90-minute program. And so I would walk around the area, get some steps in, listen to a podcast. But I would also often sit in the front seat or in the passenger seat of my car, bring my laptop, hotspot it, and do some work. And one said gymnastics work sesh, I came up with the anatomy of a hard or difficult but hopefully worthwhile conversation. And it goes like this. There are sound effects if you're ready. It goes like this. This is the anatomy. There's the should I do it? Should I do it? You decide to do it. The hard conversation starts as soon as you initiate or say, request. Can we? Because that's one of the steps is an invitation or a request, as opposed to just jumping right in and blindsiding or triggering someone. So there's the should I and the preparation. Then you do it. There's a dip down because it's vulnerable and hard, as much, if not more, for the initiator of the conversation than the receiver. And then in good, healthy conversations, there's a transcend up, where the telltale sign of a hard conversation becoming worthwhile is it leads both of you to a better place. And better could be we consciously decide to change something. So that's the anatomy. And let's go through sort of each of these steps with a bit more definition. Sound good?
Let's do it.
Okay. So one, and you did this wonderfully, which is the preparation. Preparation, this is what you should do or can do before the actual conversation happens. For some of us, the preparation could just be up here. I think good preparation can also be pen to paper or typing out and just like very objectively looking at What is the situation? How do I feel? Is it a feedback? Is there an FBI? Because feedback conversations are live within, I think, the realm of hard or worthwhile conversations. It can be reaching out to a friend and saying, I think I need to do the hard thing. And I've done that many times before I've made the choice to speak up or initiate a hard conversation. So that's that first step is the should I do it and the preparation before you actually do it. Um, Anything you want to add in that first step, preparation?
Just that I'm lucky to my prep happen to be with an expert on this topic. So
Thank you. Very kind.
sorry for the people that are like, yeah, that's great for you, David, but I don't know
And if
how.
you also would like to call me to prepare 416 5 no no. But feel free to reach out if you are looking to prepare for a hard conversation. Send us an email. We're happy to help if we can, to whatever degree that we can, or maybe even make a little podcast episode out of it. So please do. If you are preparing for a hard conversation, we're here to help. Put in a comment, send us a private note to us via LinkedIn direct messages, or a note to team@shedinspires.com. So that's preparation. Um, and be careful not to stay in preparation for too long. There could be an analysis paralysis. There is something around sort of there can be like a nice sweet spot or strike zone of timing when it comes to when to have a hard conversation. So preparation doesn't mean that you need to write a novel, but know the conversation you think you want to have. Yeah. Do we go to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. The next one is the invitation or request. This is the asking of the other person to have the conversation. Is it the right time? Is it the right place? Is it within their strike zone, right? Depending on the relationship that you have with someone. And that's a hat tip and nod to our previous episode with Dr. Leanne Davey on feedback and having a feedback strike zone that you agree upon with your manager or your leader. To me, the invitation or the request is when the hard conversation actually starts. You begin to get data here. So, there is a moment I know we referenced in a previous episode, David, where you and I were doing some planning for this very podcast that we're on, how meta that we're talking about a conversation about the conversation. And I sensed that there was tension or like something happened over there. And this was on Zoom, right? And I just sort of said, hey, what's up? Like checking in. Seems like something shifted, but I invited. And you said, yeah. And like we spoke about the fact that you really wanted to deliver a win quick for us, and you envisioned starting sooner and this, that, and the other. And just by virtue of schedules, it was what it was. And I think we've ended up finding a good way ahead. But that was sort of me, instead of just saying like, why are you upset? Or potentially like attacking. It was an invitation or a request of what's going on over there. I sense a shift.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
And wow, it sounds like I've got a lot of issues on my side.
But no, you are a fallible, wonderful human being who is emotionally aware and intelligent. I know that there was another person. I don't know them personally, but you shared some of their work with me, and I loved what you shared with me. David Spinks, yes?
Yes.
So there was another person you reached out to. Also, it seems as though also sort of in the machinations of what to say, how to start, how to initiate. So can you go through, because like there was a reach out to like request the conversation, and then there was what the heck do I say and how do I open this can of worms?
Yeah. Shout out David Spinks. We'll link his Substack. He's a community builder, been a community builder of community builders, wrote a book called The Business of Belonging. And I was talking to him about the preparation for this conversation and kind of just how I was feeling about things. And I think like he kind of helped me with the prep, the invitation, and the conversation, which is, or the initial, or starting the conversation, which I think that's the next part of the stages. And basically, like the one thing that I really learned from him was because there was a couple different things that were happening in my mind and a couple different parts of this like hard conversation that I was trying to have, and I wasn't entirely sure how to kind of like go about it. And this Substack post that we'll share, and David walked me through it, was this idea around like I kind of started the conversation by saying like, I'm going to say something imperfectly. Is that okay? Instead of just going right into it of like, hey, you did this. Here's how I felt, or here's how I see this. Here's what sucks. Here's what the issue
Yeah.
is.
And we're like, whoa, we're having that combo? Okay, didn't know. Okay, all right.
Yeah. Because I wanted this to be a collaborative conversation.
Dialogue. Yeah.
Dialogue, yeah. So I said like, hey, is it okay if I say this imperfectly? And then the person I was talking to said like, yeah. And so then at that point, I felt like I got their consent to kind of share more openly and comfortably, and that if it didn't come out perfectly, that it was okay. So that was really, really helpful to then kind of like start and have this conversation.
Great. So yes, so David Spinks, and he has this article that we'll link. Say It Imperfectly is the name of the article, and yes, The Business of Belonging: How to Make Community Your Competitive Advantage. So we'll link to that as well. So there's first the question of like, should I have this hard conversation? And another tool there, does it feel psychologically safe enough? Does it feel worth it? And sometimes the does it feel worth it can be more important than does it feel safe, because if there's stakes, high stakes involved, we make the choice to display the courage, have the integrity, courage to bring up, say the thing, even if hard or unsafe, psychologically dangerous. That's a choice of courageous leadership. There's then the, should I, safe and worth it. There's then the preparation. How am I thinking about this? What do I want to say? What's a win here? Even what's the can opener? How do I start this? There's the invitation or the request. Can we have this meeting? Can we have this conversation? This can look like walking over to someone's office or desk. This could be a text message or a meeting request or whatever. And then there's the, okay, we're in the room where it happens. Like we're in the conversation, whether it's phone, a video chat, or in person. How do you open it? And sometimes it's can we have what could be a hard conversation as I open this very episode? It could also be, I have something to say. I don't really know how to say it. So permission for some grace, which is important, especially if you have someone who you're speaking with who's like a high D on disc or a high red, in insights. If someone's like be brief and be gone and a high control type of leader, to sort of ask permission. And I say something imperfectly for a couple of minutes here because there's a dialogue, a conversation I want to happen. So that's, you don't have to open it perfectly. I think the imperfect way of opening it is great and perfectly perfect. Perfectly imperfect. Ayo.
I love the can opener. I don't know if you use that before or not, but
it's TM. Yeah.
I feel like that's gonna be my new thing.
Yeah.
The can opener of conversations. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I open a can of convo here? So then there's the actual having of the conversation, and this is in the anatomy. This is the dip. By the way, if you haven't checked out the music band, The Dip, you're welcome. They're fantastic. Very funky, very awesome. The Dip. But this was not named because of the dip, or maybe it was subconsciously. I don't know. But anyway, the dip in the hard conversation is like the scary part of the roller coaster. The like, oh snap, this is happening. And as we heard in our last conversation with Dr. Leanne Davey, it is vulnerable. Like, it requires maturity and growth and being okay in ourselves to initiate and move toward some of these hard conversations. But the dip is the scary part. It's the like it's the imperfect getting into the vulnerably sharing your experience and your perspective. I'm in this role. I don't think it's working. I don't think I'm performing to the level, or I'm not receiving the type of work that I want, or I'm not being challenged, or I'm having a hard time because of something that's going on outside of work and it's affecting how I'm showing up here. That's the dip, and that's hard. But you begin to get data here. Is your talking partner, are they listening? Do they care? Is there compassion? Is there curiosity? Are they listening actively, right? They don't need to make you right to make you feel validated and that you matter. And you're getting a lot of data here. In healthy, worthwhile conversations, and we can speak more about navigating in the actual conversation, but in healthy relationships and in healthy, worthwhile, hard conversations, there's a transcend up. You leave in a better place. You leave with greater clarity. You leave with greater alignment and commitment, and a commitment to follow through and act, which is the next step. Um, that doesn't always happen in one conversation. It can be multiple over an extended period of time, whether it's hours, days, or weeks or more. But that's the conversation piece. There's the dip, and then there's the transcend up, and hopefully leave in a better place. What else, David, on the conversation or anything else before we go to the final step of how to navigate the anatomy of hard, difficult, worthwhile conversations?
I guess the only other thing that stood out to me from this conversation that I'm thinking about was that the imperfectly part, this other person then later on said, "Can I say something imperfectly as well?" So
Mm,
um, there was a can opener approach that they used as well for like their a part
the
on their,
permission.
yeah. So I think like, yeah, in this case, like modeling this type of behavior, using this type of behavior, this approach of how I was opening up the can of conversation
Nice.
inspired or sparked someone else to kind of utilize that same approach. So,
Nice.
yeah,
Yeah, there is a so vulnerability begets vulnerability. Like there's a that you sort of raised the bar of the vulnerability and emotional lid, or the capacity of the conversation. And because you led in a certain way, they match, and they're like, huh, can I say something imperfect as well, so that we're having the same conversation? That's really cool.
so then I felt really good after that happened. So then that was like um, I think like when you're starting these hard conversations, it's like cool. Like in this case, there was a dialogue, and it's like, hey, okay, great, this was going really well. Then when it got the other side to kind of open up as well, it then felt like, wait, this was win, 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 in the sense that like it wasn't just that my imperfectly situation got to them to meet me where I'm at, which it did. But then I also got, which again, got lucky, but like we transcended up in a way that then this person was able to like have probably a little bit of a hard conversation on their side. So that was like really cool. I
Oh,
remember, yeah,
like
like
it
I
helped them initiate having a hard
yeah,
conversation with other
yeah,
parties. Oh, neat.
with me. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh, neat.
So yeah, so like how I, yeah, so like you never know. I think through this hard conversation, you never know where the transcendence up can go.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
and that's like, I couldn't anticipate how someone would respond to like just the parts that I was going to say, but then
Yeah.
also like how that like sparked something else for them to bring up other things that, so I remember just kind of leaving this conversation being like, whoa, like I feel a lot better, but also just like new things started like just happening. I think like a lot of times these hard conversations, they're, like the hardest one is in our head for a while. And then, like it felt good to get it out. But then also just like all this new information emerged, and also new context, um, new perspectives, and didn't know how they were feeling or what the conversation in the head that they were having was. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
just want to share that part.
Nice. So you were effectively leading, like you led, you initiated, and was your vulnerable leadership was contagious, and it elevated them to join you in the same conversation, which is great. Now, if you lead that way and the other party or parties doesn't go there, you might not transcend up. And then you go, okay, I need to make a shift, or I need to make a change because the other party or parties isn't matching my level of honesty.
Mm.
Um, I also hear that there was sort of a healthy unattachment to the outcome. Like you wanted clarity, but you didn't exactly know how is it gonna go. And so there was sort of a healthy unattachment to let's see, but it ended up in this situation that we're referencing, getting you and them to a clearer, better place.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that that goes into this like, is it worthwhile? Or at least to me, like the worthwhile is like, is it worth it? And the worth it is like, you know, is it worth hopefully improving, but also is it worth the potential other side of things? I don't want to say
Yeah.
the downside, but like,
Or
is
like
it?
all of the outcomes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. That's the spectrum of
Yeah,
outcomes. Are you willing to take that risk?
yeah.
Yeah. The other thing before we go to the last step, so my favorite thing to do in coaching conversations, and I will often do this with friends when it comes to intimate or romantic partnerships or spouses or girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever it is I find that we talk a bigger game in the side conversation before the actual conversation. And so I'm thinking of one of my favorite people who's a dear friend, and she's looking for her forever partner and hasn't happened. And there was one relationship that she was recently in where she thought it could be it, and like the one or someone she felt that she could grow with, but there was an issue and there was fear. And so I poked and prodded and I asked, well, there was permission to have this conversation. And I said, well, what's the fear? And she perfectly articulated the fear. And I went, if you could wave your magic wand and have the conversation with them, what would the conversation be? And then I really fricking listened, because often we will say the thing that we need to say to the other person, but we don't, or we hold back out of fear, out of. And my sort of coaching and advice to my dear friend is have the conversation that scares the out of you, because it'll just expedite things. Either it is illegitimate and you're making it up or whatever it might be, or bingo, you've hit on something, and how they respond is really telling. Like when I joke that my marriage with my wife began when we got engaged. Because when you get engaged, like, you're planning a wedding and there's invite lists and you're bringing families together, and like you're inviting stress and conflict and tension into the relationship that you're mirroring. Like the process for me of getting engaged was like, yeah, I've made the right choice because of the adult, mature way that we communicated and made decisions and made hard decisions. So I really love, getting people to say the thing that they wish they could say to the person. And then, will you have that conversation? And I think that it really shows the true makeup of that relationship. If you articulate the fear out loud, and on the other side is more commitment, love, whatever it might be, and whatever is appropriate in the context of that relationship, cool. Like hard, worthwhile conversation. If you articulate the fear and it makes things worse, probably not a relationship that is worth sticking in potentially. Thoughts? I know we didn't plan on that little tangent there, but that just came to mind.
The expediting was a thing that you, I think, brought up in our
Yeah.
conversation about the conversation. And so I'm glad that you mentioned this now, because I remember
Yeah.
coming away from our conversation being like, you're right. Like maybe this will expedite something.
Because I'm now remembering we probably went through the decision tree. I think very decision tree. I'm like, okay, here are your options. You say nothing and you wait it out and you're like, I can't do that. I'm like, cool. Then it's let's go to the next decision tree piece, right? So it's the choosing to say the thing expedites can typically expedite the inevitable. Not always, but it can. Yes, pressure is a test that can speed things up. Physics. Okay, so preparation. Should you have the conversation, safe and worth it, prepare, get some objective things out loud, invite, request, initiate the conversation, oftentimes imperfectly, and that imperfect nature invites another to enter into the dialogue and be imperfect as well. I know there's the question that we'll probably get to after, but what happens if we like how do we keep our emotions in check, especially as we're in the conversation? But we'll have a bit on that. The last piece of the anatomy, as we go up, we hopefully transcend up and leave in a better place. A big piece is the follow through. So at the end of the hard, worthwhile conversation, do we have greater clarity? And do we go, okay, like this is what's going to happen now, or this is what we each agree to? And if you, so this is acting upon everything that was agreed in the conversation. And this is a big part of the is it worth it piece. And this, I think, is a big part of do we need to have another hard conversation? Or like, do we need to revisit the same conversation? Or are we now in the next or a different conversation? So prepare, invite a request, have the conversation, and then follow through. If we don't follow through, it's we need to have the same hard conversation. We agreed, we haven't acted upon. Are we going to? If we agree and we act upon, and now we're in a new dynamic place in the relationship, the question is there another hard, worthwhile conversation that ought to happen to hit your next transcend up?
Beautiful. I think you nailed
Cool.
that.
Cool. All right. Um, so I know we had a few sort of bits and bobs here, tids and bits here on just some additional questions before we land this plane and hopefully leave you in a better place, listener. Should we go through some of these?
Yeah. So Sheb, we were talking a lot about also around like transcending and like obviously that's like in my case I talked about how like it went really well and it opened up, we left in a better place. But what happens if you don't transcend?
So if you don't transcend, I think the question is, have you not transcended because you haven't done enough or given, like, are there areas in the conversation? Are there fissures that you haven't yet explored? Is there more to be said? So sometimes you don't transcend in one conversation because more needs to happen. And the follow through on that first go is we need to continue this conversation. And sometimes that's normal, especially when there's time pressure involved. So if you have to cut a conversation to make it finished and not complete, right? A finished conversation, we're done because of time, but got to go pick up the kids or there's distraction or the next meeting or whatever. That to me is okay, let's agree to continue. But if after one or repeated attempts you aren't transcending and it's just getting worse, you might be in a hard conversation that should stop, and you need to give the relationship distance. Be careful if you are having this conversation with someone who might be or shows unhealthy narcissistic tendencies. So if you have this conversation or you have a hard conversation with someone and they use DARVO, so DARVO is like the narcissist playbook. DARVO is an acronym that stands for deny, attack, reverse, victim, offender. So if you come to me and you're like, hey, Shed, can we have a hard conversation about X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, sure, of course. And you have the hard conversation. And my response is, I deny it. Now I'm potentially gaslighting. Not only do I deny, I now attack you. So you say, hey, Shed, you showed up in a way in this instance and it made me feel unsafe and that I don't belong. And I'm like, no, I didn't. In fact, you make me feel that I don't belong. Now I'm twisting it. So if you have conversations with folks and they use DARVO, deny, attack, reverse victim offender, the best thing to do is distance, ignore, or get the out of that relationship if you can. But distance is certainly helpful. So is it not transcending up because we haven't given it enough breathing room and time? And have we not explored all of it? Or after one or repeated attempts, it's just not improving and getting worse? You're trying to take responsibility and accountability, but the other party or parties isn't. That might be a hard conversation that is just going to stay hard and not worthwhile.
Cool.
Yeah.
Should we move to a lightning round?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so are all hard conversations worthwhile?
No, it has to be safe. It has to be worth it. And like ask and answer from the last. Sometimes it's just hard and it's going to stay hard and not going to get better. And you've tried and you've done your best and you got to figure out how to cut your losses.
What makes a conversation worthwhile?
Like what does worth it mean? To me, it means that it'll lead to some sort of improvement or positive generative outcome or path ahead, which could mean we consciously decide to decouple, or we consciously decide this isn't working and we should make a shift, or we consciously decide, I shouldn't be doing this project, or I shouldn't be reporting into this person, or whatever it is. But what makes it worthwhile is you leave in a better place.
Yeah. And I think that can be like related to the work or whatever the situation is, but then also like how you feel about it. Like, how do you emotionally feel about it? I feel like the better, like better,
yes,
like improvement is also just like internally, like emotionally related to this.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. Is having hard conversations a skill?
Yes, and so I think there are skills involved, but there's also, we'll lean into Rich Divini's work, there are attributes involved as well that are likely to make hard conversations more successful. So there are skills we can work on, like can openers. Can I say something imperfectly, right? But then there's also attributes that I think lend well to leading, initiating, participating in hard and worthwhile conversations. Compassion, there's that one that comes up again. Emotional intelligence, accountability, curiosity, open-mindedness. I think it's a mix of skills and attributes that allow us to participate functionally and maturely in these hard and worthwhile conversations.
Should we land the plane?
Yeah, there's also another point here we have, when in a hard conversation or in disagreement, criticize ideas, not people. Not to make it personal. And if your emotions do show up and like you're triggered or derailed, so what do? This is one of my favorite stories. So when I was on Simon Sinek's team during COVID, we totally transformed the business. We took what was a business where we showed up often in planes, planes, trains, automobiles, showed up into a room and delivered a keynote or a workshop. That disappeared and we had to transform our business. And I was helping to lead product development and what are we doing? And I forget the details, but I remember clearly what happened. We made a decision like 3 weeks prior. We kept going. And then 3 weeks later, we were like, oh, wrong decision. And like, this is financially a hard time pressure a hard time, just emotionally and the human experience of being in lockdown, hard, uncertain time. And I remember we had an update meeting and the company's CEO was there and we communicated to them that the decision we made 3 weeks ago was the wrong decision and we now are reverting back to a different decision. And they were pissed. Like they weren't happy. And what they did though was so good. They named their emotions. They said, I'm frustrated. I'm angry. I need some space. I'm going to take a walk. I'm just going to turn off my camera. And they left. And they came back 15 minutes later and were like, okay, I'm all in. And I thought it was so brilliant. So when emotions show up, do the best that you can to just name them. And when you name them, you tame them. Lean into Susan David's brilliant work on emotional agility here, of just like I'm frustrated. I'm going to be destructive if I stay here. I need some space. And it's like, Kim Scott taught me that the success of any good marriage is to leave at least one thing unsaid every day. I wish I could say that's bad advice, but it's really, really good advice. And for some of us, it's more than one. But I loved that example. What was interesting is, I reported into this CEO, and they were kind of embarrassed by how they showed up. And I said to them, no, I thought that was so mature and so brilliant. You knew you were going to throw a grenade into a meeting. And so you threw your grenade outside and went for a walk. And then when you came back, you were present, you were helpful, and you're like, all right, where are we and what do we need? And I thought it was brilliant. So if you are emotionally triggered, name it, take some space, and then come back when you can be inwardly sound, as my friend Tim Spiker would say.
Beautiful.
All right. So, thank you, David, for your vulnerability in sharing that with us and sort of being our real test dummy here, and not so dummy. So, thank you for that. Our ending here, yes. So, our question or thought. Do you want to open it up, or do you want me to? I think I kind of want you to.
Okay. So, our invitation to people here as a kind of a wrap up, call to action, etc., was like, and obviously I'm biased here, but like how I was able to help have this hard conversation was some of this prep work.
Yeah.
So, conversation with David Spinks, conversation with you. We would encourage you, and we also made ourselves available, through reaching out to us. But yeah, to really kind of lean into the preparation side and get that hard conversation out of your own head and start to take some action around it. Start to think about whether it is worthwhile. Start to think about, are you safe? Is the environment safe to have this hard conversation? Is it worth it? So, reach out to a friend and, with, some context and say, or just randomly call them, that
I can work.
Or that can at least spark the prep conversation, as it did for us. And, we want to use this conversation as a way to spark other conversations, either with us or with your friends or in your organizations. So,
Cool. So our last question to you is there a hard and hopefully worthwhile conversation you feel or you need to or ought to have as you've listened to this episode? And how can you prepare? How can you write something down? How can you reach out to a friend or a trusted partner or colleague and say, I think I'm struggling to speak up, or I think I need to have a hard convo, and I'd love to run it by you for your objective perspective, not just venting, but, hey, can you inch me closer toward having the courage, skills, tools to have this hard conversation? This has been episode 7, How to Have a Hard Conversation. We have our season 1 finale next, episode 8. We haven't titled it yet, but it's like a mailbag. We put a call out to our amazing community and listeners to send in questions. If we didn't get to answer your question next time, please feel free to send in for the next time that we do this, team@shedinspires.com, or feel free to send us direct messages on LinkedIn as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you got a ton of value. Remember, leadership is in our behavior, and there are so many behaviors that we covered today. Keep making it safe. Keep making it worth it for the people around you to speak up. Have the courage to speak up and the humility to listen. Thanks so much. See you next time.